Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. So today I wanted to go over cheat lists real quick. Specifically what I consider to be the sort of perfect standard playthrough experience kind of cheat list, as well as just kind of some stuff that's on this list that I posted up a little while ago that I never actually got around to explaining, because there's a bunch of random stuff on here, and I just wanted to go over whatever I can in like the 20 minutes or so that I have today. So let's go ahead and discuss that real quick. So first and foremost, what I consider the sort of perfect loadout here as far as cheats are concerned. We're going to have, first and foremost, the low-level class EXP scaling fix. I mean, whether you're playing the PSP version or One Vision, more likely One Vision, but whatever, this is, frankly, a must for this game. It's basically I guess you could say more intuitive. Well, it's arguable whether it's more intuitive. It's basically an alternative version of what the level caps did in a way for Reborn, wherein effectively what it's doing is that it's making sure that your low-level classes get experience before your higher-level ones. With a very, very big leaning towards them. And the reason that this is important, because you might be saying, you know, the original versions also kind of sort of had this, but it basically takes that up to 11, where your higher level units get next to no experience, and then your lower level ones get everything. Not only does this make it a lot easier to bring new classes into your party, but additionally it makes it so you don't accidentally overlevel your units, which for those familiar with PSP and One Vision is kind of just an annoying quirk of the system. It's again why there were level caps put into Reborn. Many will complain that they can't just power level past the game, but come on, dude, seriously. Keeping your people balanced was way more difficult than it was to just steamroll the thing. Anyway, so yeah, for those that prefer to actually play as intended, that is an absolute must. Second thing, which actually is listed on One Vision's website at this point, is that is going to be for enemy pickups going to the player. And if you're playing on the Japanese version, there is a version for you as well. And whether you want to turn it on and off, it's here as well. Basically what this means is that regardless of who gets the bag, you get the loot. So standard SNES and PSP type of stuff is that the item is just deleted if an enemy picks them up. You can't kill them to get it back. That is a Reborn feature. And as much as I love that in Reborn, this way just basically means that you don't have to worry about your loot drops. If you killed the thing, if you didn't shoot him off a cliff, you're going to get your thing, right? It's a really nice quality of life thing. It's just suddenly not a problem anymore. So personally, I keep this on at all times because there really isn't anything strategically different for those kinds of things there. Second thing, this is a personal one because I like using recruits all the time, and it's just a personal thing that kind of bugs me about the PSP system, that it actually has something that was worked into the Reborn system, in that they only keep their top 4 skill slots by default in PSP. That was not a Reborn change. Basically, they only keep their top 4 slots, which means if you were training somebody for skills, they won't come with those skills more than likely. If you're going and getting somebody for their equipment, there's a decent chance that, you know, they would end up changing their equipment when you hired them. So with that all being said, all this does is that they keep everything as they are when you hire them. It's just a nice little immersion change. Realistically, there's nothing here that's going to kind of break the game, so to speak, so you might as well just have it on there. It just changes it to work mostly like it did in Reborn, with the caveat that they will remember their extra spells and stuff like that. So technically it's a bit more forgiving than the one in Reborn there, which still locked away certain spells, which might have been an oversight, because they sort of fixed it in all other ways. Next thing here is going to be the Warren Report Advanced Features. Now this one might be a bit contentious as far as being perfect on the list. Basically what this does is that it turns on a lot of your later game events. So for example, scaling goes into New Game Plus mode, which means that it will just scale up at all times. I personally really like that. Generally fights will have more potentially more stuff going on there, like it won't be taking it easy on you in the early game. And additionally, you have access to the Chaos Frame meters at all times, so that's very convenient. For those unfamiliar, in the PSP system, you actually had to get a hold of the Fire Crest to unlock this. It was only in Reborn that they changed it, that you unlock this right from the point that you beat the game the first time. Personally, I just kind of prefer to have the meters on there all the time. It's not really like you're going to plan that much around it. It's just cool to have it there. Funnily enough, this is actually how it worked in the Saturn version, one of the weird, oddly specific changes that version made. And yeah, that's basically about it. As far as I'm concerned, that is kind of the perfect loadout for everything to work as it should. Now, I'm going to go ahead and talk about a few other ones here with the time that I have left to just kind of go over this stuff. So, first of all, as far as these random odds and ends for template changes, there is a plan in the future at some point once I finish editing the Union Level 0 run that I was planning to do like Iron Man runs, just kind of like one-shot Iron Man runs with teams made up from other games like Triangle Strategy or Unicorn Overlord. I forget why exactly I called it DU instead of UO. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. So the plan was to do that at some point. But as far as template changes and whatever else, all of this is already explained on the One Vision resource, so there's not really too much to go over there. As far as setting unit levels, this is worth mentioning. For the moment, the One Vision resource basically has this fixed, but just so you know, if you're using any older versions of leveling units to a particular location, if for whatever reason you find yourself in a position that they are not leveling past that point, it's because the game keeps track of levels and experience gained as two separate kind of buckets, so to speak. So the way that the resource does it, it should handle both at the same time, but some older codes, like I don't know if I have these set correctly, some of those older codes will cause that issue. But one thing that I would recommend if you're setting yourself up a cheat list, many folks like to set up a sort of a chapter level up kind of thing, where let's say they notice themselves landing at certain thresholds with the amount of classes that they're using, so they'll set up a bunch of cheats that just like set all classes to, let's say, 12 at the end of let's say 10 at the end of chapter 1, 20 at the end of chapter 3, what have you, maybe 15 at the end of chapter 2. It's up to you. Obviously everyone's playthrough is going to be a little bit different, but a lot of folks do like to set themselves up little checkpoints like that for multiple playthroughs. And additionally, this allows you to de-level your units if you'd prefer to keep the same people but go back through different routes, as it were, Okay. Next up, no experience. I really wouldn't recommend turning that on, but it is a very interesting challenge run. I will attempt that for One Vision at some point. I don't see it as being possible in One Vision, but maybe. Don't know for sure yet. We'll see how that goes. Bosses have no innate immunities. This is just if you want easy mode, like if you're just in a position that Zabos is kicking your ass or whatever else, and you want the ability to just charm him against his units, this is just fun to play around with. It just gets rid of their natural immunities to a lot of more hardcore debuffs, as it were, so, bewitch bosses to your content and all of that. Scavenging skills by anyone, this is like, for anyone that's only played Reborn, scavenging is a mechanic they use in this one, in which when a character dies, you have a corpse added to your party, and then you use the scavenge command to put their skills onto somebody else, like if they were training anything up. So the restriction is that, for example, only humanoid units can acquire humanoid skills. What's funny is that in the case of Hawkmen, they're considered humans for everything except for the transfer system, at which time you actually have to, for example, in PSP, to train Canopus to use a gun, you actually would have to train a Fusilier to use a gun, have him Ogre Blade into a Hawkman, kill that Hawkman, and then use the transfer mechanic to go put him into Canopus to have him understand how to fire a pistol as a Buccaneer. Anyways, just really weird weird stuff there. But yeah, this just means that there is no restriction, if it's something that you find yourself using a lot. Force deploying guests, this is useful for, potentially over-leveling your guests, as it were. Can deploy deceased. This is if you want just to get rid of the death mechanic, more or less. Enemy is everything 99. This is if you want to make sure that they never run out of items. Incapacitated units warp away. This actually is basically easy mode for a no incap run. Just basically instead of falling down onto the ground, they get warped away, just like guest characters. It is an interesting challenge mode in and of itself. Steel costing 0 TP is a little pointless in One Vision because it's already 10 anyway. Like, you're never not going to be able to steal. TP and MP regen rates, I think these ones were bugged, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure they were bugged. I'm not 100% certain. Let's see. Crest of Fire at level 1. This just means that you can use the Crest of Fire at level 1, obviously. Shopping anywhere on the world map might be useful for if you're potentially stuck in that situation where you're just before the Falkirk fight in Chapter 2. You need access to the shop for one reason or another. That is a potential soft lock that I've actually tried to make videos on for Reborn before, but it was just kind of a dull soft lock to get out of. The general idea being that if absolutely everybody on your team died and you had no items somehow, how do you win the Fulkert fight when you only have access to the Faramba Wildwood? And then obviously the answer is like, well, you keep killing the one rune fencer that you can get close to at the very first map, and then you eventually get a Spellblades mark, and then you use that to get recruit, and then you recruit a party, and it's like, oh look, it's this whole get out of your thing. Kind of pointless. No one's going to be in that situation, but I've made that video a couple of times and found it too boring to put up multiple times, so maybe someday. Let's see, controlling all units in the battle. This is actually another fun one if you want to play as the AI. Again, another one that's planned for the future of just playing as the AI and then fighting with the player team all as AI units, just kind of doing all fights in reverse. A fun little thing to play around with if you're curious. But this also means that you get a sense for what they can see, what they can use, what they have access to, all of that kind of thing. You can always deploy 12 units. Again, basically easy mode if you want it. If you want more of that sort of kind of mountain blade type feeling. Auto battle is just everybody turns to aggressive AI. I think it just uses the plain aggressive AI. I'm not sure if there's any alternatives there. Use items and reagents maxed out obviously is pretty clear. Changing any character into any job though, there's actually an improved version of this later on down the list, but it does exactly what it says. You can turn somebody into any job that you'd like. This version I believe still requires class marks. The version later on down the list doesn't use any class marks. It just bypasses that entirely. Action Infinite is a really useful one for testing things. So, like, for example, I had no idea that the prevailing element mechanic was a thing until using this to test summons to infinitely attack a single thing, and was noticing that the number was going up, and was like, wait a minute, holy crap, this mechanic that they were talking about existing actually exists. but yeah, it's mostly just for testing stuff, setting up testing scenarios and what have you. Let's see, all class change licenses are pretty obvious. Base stat maxes just turns everybody to 100. Enable auction items in the store just gives you just a full stack of every auction item. Quick skill rank up is just if you were using that before, and typically quick skill rank up is just 1 to 2 rank ups per action. So it doesn't mean that everything instantly ranks up. You still have to have the skill checked in some way, and that's one of the ways that we kind of figured out over time. Just like potentially how minuscule some of those, technically a skill check is still happening here kind of moments where you would just get a big old rank notification instead of going through menus every time. Like, hey, look, technically being hit by that fireball ranked up your fireballs, or your fire augment. Okay, accessories are obvious. Auction items we already discussed. What else we got here? Yeah, these are all pretty self-explanatory. Hold triangle for successful recruit. It says it on the thing, but you'd be surprised how many times that's been asked. You just hold triangle and it turns to 100%. If it's glitching back and forth, you need to clean the contacts on your triangle button. Loyalty max is obvious, max chaos frame is obvious, quick skill rank up is obvious. These two, skill point, first 50 unit 99k, and support skills 50 unit. This is if you want your skills to work like they do in Reborn. So basically, if your unit can learn any skill at all, they learn them immediately. The one downside of this is that it also gives them skills that they wouldn't have access to yet. So you'd get things like, attack 2 or whatever else way early. So, maybe pay attention to where the numbers are supposed to be, only use skills that are meant to be there. This is useful if somebody never wants to worry about switching into new classes, building up skill points. It's not necessarily a system that does much strategically, so it's perfectly fine to just activate these and kind of use them as you will. I probably should ask somebody to maybe shift this around a little bit to be a more, just a less annoying number. Or you could just put support skills learned and just kind of have everything already learned. You don't necessarily need to spend the points. But one thing you need to know is that it is strictly support skills, so like weapon skills, augments, and basically any kind of skills that are specifically unique to a particular class, they will not learn. That's why you typically have both at the same time. Alright, all cursed weapons just adds the basic cursed weapons. All professions level 50. If you want to play unleveled mode, just turn everybody to 50. 32 skill rank up, I'm pretty sure that's broken. Always show trajectory, just kind of if you want to have that as a Reborn feature. I'm perfectly fine considering how good trajectory is in OV. I'm perfectly fine just keeping that there. Some of these were repeated because of random copy-paste shenanigans. This version of enemy pickups doesn't work. Change any character, any job improved. This is the one that you want to be using down here. Just exactly as it says, changes any character into any job. Doesn't check for class marks or anything. Doesn't overload your inventory with every single class mark in the game or anything. Just good stuff there. TP shows loyalty, so if you want to check your loyalty without checking the text version, that's over here. Hiring units with more SP, as well as hiring more classes from the shop. Those are really cool too, like especially if you want to do like a randomizer kind of run. Hiring more classes from the shop gives you every humanoid type, including stuff like angels, so that's just cool. You can just go into the shop and be like, hey look, I have a lich today. You know, just cool stuff. Hire with more SP, so like the kind of soft core version of a randomizer run is just you get rid of your units at the end of every fight, and then just go to the shop and hire recruits with more SP, you know. Max shop level if you want to be able to shop just whenever you'd like. I want to say, was this Sheena that put those together? I feel like I know that there's more credit to be given as far as where all these codes came from. It's just whenever they come up in the Discord, usually I'm just kind of sitting there and just like, oh, shove these right into the list. We'll check what they do later. And I totally forget who posted them in the first place. So either way, I just like to try to catalog this stuff. Let's see, anything else here? So enemies have access to all gear or accept uniques. This is, again, just basically if you want unofficial hard mode, just give them way better equipment all of a sudden. Just kind of cool stuff to see there. And then enemies always dropping. Those are self-explanatory. Yeah, more repeats, because I can't stop copy-pasting. So yeah, that's kind of about that. That's most of what I want to cover here, and mostly what I have time for here today. So just yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff to be had there in terms of those cheats. There's a lot of potential modifications that you could do to make your run a bit more special, as it were. And yeah, one of those many things that makes this game so infinitely replayable. Just like the sheer ridiculous weight of how many different ways you can play through it. Anyway, yeah, that's about that. So y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.